very much.
Good evening, Sue.
I need your ID. I don't know if it's you. I need your ID. I don't know if it's you. You look awful young. We
United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Minutes reflect that we have everybody here tonight. 7. Side note to that, this is the last meeting for the fellow on my left.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. Everybody have a chance to read the minutes from June 8th meeting? If there are any corrections or additions, subtractions, to approve them as submitted.
I make a motion that we approve the minutes from the last meeting.
Motion to approve, do I hear a second?
second,
I hear a second.
second.
Favor signify by saying
Aye.
aye. Opposed? There's no old business on the agenda tonight. Under new business. Item A, public hearing. Site plan review approval, Big Lot LLC, Phase 3, 1761 East County Road 75. In case anybody in here is not familiar with what the Big Lot is, it's a road that runs between the road just east of the landfill over to 225, I think it's 5 South,
That's correct.
where they're building those storage lots, and then it used to be a pig lot, so that's what it's named. Phase 3.
Yes, this is the final phase of the self-storage facility. Right now, there's currently an existing residence on that property. They were not sure what they were going to do with that residence, but they have determined they're going to go ahead and remove it and finish out their self-storage units. And this is, like I said, this is the final phase. Dale Cruz is here to present.
Good evening, I'm Dale Cruz, Cruz Consulting, 7384 Business Center Drive in Avon. And I'm here this evening on behalf of Dwayne Lane, who's the owner of this project. Been here a couple of times in the pretty recent past for the first 2 phases. They've proven to be successful, proven to believe that a lot of people have a lot of stuff that they want to store. And Dwayne fills that need and is filling that need at this site. I'm going to direct you to, in the packet that Lisa made, it's the second page of our plans. In the bottom right corner, it says page 2 of 7. And it looks a little like this, and you'll see up in this corner right here, you'll see kind of how the phases are. And the first phase is in the top left. The second phase is in the bottom right. And then this last phase is the smallest phase, but it's in the white area in the top right corner of the property. It's a little over an acre. So in the whole entire site, it's about 20 acres. This last piece is about acre and a half. And the first 2 phases have filled a need for large indoor storage for like your type A RVs, and a little smaller storages for your B and C RVs in larger boats, and then a little smaller space for a smaller boat trailer, somebody that has a lot of household goods. And so what we don't have here are storage lockers for smaller spaces, like 10 by 20s, 10 by 15s. So this last phase is to fill the need for those type storage spaces. And that you'll see on the very next page. The proposal is to build 4 buildings on this property, and they would all be for smaller storage spaces, 10 by 20s, 5 by 10s. They'd be smaller ones. So this will have its own detention area. Would be in the southwest corner of the little small parcel. Stands alone in its drainage, just like the other 2 parcels did. Lisa's comments, or the town's comments, they're in the packet about 6 or 7 pages in their case summary. And the first topic is zoning, which we already have zoning in place to do what we need to do here. Utilities, we don't have a need for public water or public sewer, so it's not to the site, and that's okay with us. We're not creating any new public streets. We did have a few drainage comments from Joe Miller at Banning. His comments are actually a couple pages back. We've addressed, I believe at least, all of Joe's comments as of late last week. So I think we're okay there. I don't have confirmation from Joe, but if I don't, we'll fix whatever he's got an issue with, because his last round of comments were very minor. They were cleaning up basic details on our drainage outlet. So they were very minor. Landscaping, we provided Lisa with an updated landscaping plan, which I believe meets the ordinance, and if it doesn't, we'll work through whatever comments she might have on the rest of the landscaping plan, but I think we're close on the landscaping plan, if not already there. And then the lighting plan, I wasn't sure how we were going to do the lighting on this phase, so I didn't turn in a lighting plan, but it will be lit, and we'll light it with the same fixtures that are being used in phase 1 and phase 2. And we'll provide that lighting plan to Lisa before those lights would be installed on the buildings. We're not asking for any additional signage for this particular phase. And then the last comment on the staff letter talks about a construction drive. So, let's see. On sheet 3 of 7, you can see it, well, you can probably see it on all of our sheets, but on sheet 3 of 7, you can probably see it the best. So on the east side of our phase, there is currently a construction drive that's in place right now that's being used to get materials and supplies to the phase on the opposite side of the creek. And so the proposal is to leave that in place until it's not needed anymore to build either one of these phases. And then once these phases are built out, then that access drive will go away. We won't need it anymore, so it'll be taken out.
Actually put large barricades across it anyway.
Yeah, we don't want people to use it. The main gate is key coded, so you get a code to get in and to get out. So he wants to control every bit of access that goes in and out of the site, even now that they have spaces being rented. So that had to be blocked off because there were people that were coming in and using it as a racetrack, four-wheeler track, a motocross track, whatever. So he had to block it off so they couldn't get in. Joe Miller's comments, yeah, like I said, we have addressed Joe's comments. His comments are in here under a little further back from the case summary, 2 or 3 pages back from the case summary, and I believe we've addressed all those. So I'd be happy to answer any questions if you have any.
Questions? If not, since this is a public hearing, I will open it up to the floor if anybody has any comments about this particular. And if you do, please come forward to the microphone and give your name and address. Seeing none, I will close the public hearing portion of it. Any gentleman and lady have any questions?
I do have something I want to add. Under the discussion regarding the fence or the gate where the construction drive is, the chief or fire chief has requested that a Knox box be put on that in the event that the main entrance would ever be blocked and they needed to get back into there. That could be an emergency access. So I wanted to make sure that Dale understood that.
You're in agreement to that?
There's no gate there now, so, and I don't know that there would be a gate before the drive would come out, but if there were a gate put up before the drive came out, we would put it,
Is there a
we
Knox
could do
box
that.
on the main gate?
No, I don't think there is. There's no.
But it's my understanding that the construction drive's not, that they are not going to remove that.
The last round of comments that we got, that we turned into you, was suggested that that would come out at the very end.
If it doesn't come out, we just recommend that it be gated off with the Knox box.
Yep, understood.
Further, I'd entertain a motion for approval or not approval.
I'll make a motion to approve the site plan review, to approve the plan.
You want to make that subject to them installing a gate with a Knox box on that?
Yes.
Good?
Yep.
All right. We have a motion with addition to that Knox box being installed at the temporary drive. Your second.
Second.
Barry?
Cato,
Aye.
Mr. Rippert,
Aye.
Mr. Harvey,
Aye.
Mr. Thompson,
Aye.
Mr. Sheets,
Aye.
Mr. Van Leer,
Aye.
vote aye as well.
Thank you very much. Good luck to you, Cody.
Thank you.
Okay. Item B, public hearing, site plan review approval, Hendricks County Board of Commissioners, Hendricks County Jail, 925 East Main Street, 14.
This is for proposal for a new jail facility adjacent to the existing one. Kevin Kavanaugh is here.
Good evening.
I'm Kevin Kavanaugh. I'm the facilities manager for Henderson County Government. Our offices are at 355 South Washington here in Danville. And we're here for a preliminary site plan review. I think the staff's prepared a pretty good package noting our status to date and some items that we still need to provide information on. I think we have done some of those, and we are certainly prepared to fulfill the rest. I didn't really plan on going through each individual item because it's well listed, and I just would offer that if you have questions or any concerns that we'd be happy to address that. I have two representatives from our architectural design team with RQAW with us here this evening, and be happy to answer any questions or concerns you might have.
I noticed that Banning had a list of 10 items, and you have a letter showing taken care of.
Yes, sir.
Correct?
I just need some information.
Bring your microphone.
I need some information, please. It indicates that 3 variances were granted by the BZA. When we get these reports, it never tells us what was varied. So what was it and what is it now?
I will recall them verbatim.
Sure.
But we asked for a reduction in some foundation planting around a couple areas of the building, with that being offset to another location around the building. We asked for a similar offset of some landscape trees in our parking areas, also offset to another area of the site. And then one other relocation, which I'm sorry, I don't remember exactly, but in essence is we just asked to be able to shift around some of the required plantings that we did not ask to reduce.
Kevin, I believe that was for interior parking. For the interior parking lot, they have a requirement for island and perimeter, and they're just locating that in other sites, other locations on the site.
Thank you.
One of them was on the east side where the area for the expansion
Yes,
road that
we
put anything there.
kept the plant units, I think, the same level and just asked to be able to relocate them at different areas on the site.
What's going to happen with the existing jail?
We're not sure yet. My expectation and recommendation is that it be demolished, but we are not sure yet. We don't have another correctional use for that. The administrative offices there may serve some short-term use for us, but it is, one consistent structure, and I'm recommending that we not keep it. We'll see what the commissioners want to do when we get to that point.
Just another piece of information. Is there an increase in the number of people that can be incarcerated in the new facility?
Yes, yeah, that's really the entire purpose for the new construction. We have crowding capacity issues at the current jail, and this will address that and plan for like a 20-year increase with the next first phase of this, which has 2 giant cell blocks. We have something on that, Sanjay? Yes, we're going to double our current capacity, and increase it more than double actually, and then we have the ability to expand to 2 more similar cell blocks in the future on the same site. So we're trying to make at least a 50-year facility, if not longer.
Sue, I've spoke to a lot of people about reuse of the jail that we have now, and maybe possibly use our police in there. And I get a lot of negatives about that from several people, that it's really not fit for that. So we've tried to look at other options to use that building, and we really haven't come up with any.
Without getting into too much detail, that existing jail structure has a lot of systemic infrastructural problems that are not easily resolved, and the expense to get to a good starting point to do something different, was probably too much. I don't have a dollar figure for that, but just to get to some of the infrastructure up to snuff would be a considerable expense, and I don't know what else you do with that facility. Then it's a jail, and it can't really be easily converted for anything else. The admin area is a little bit different, but there's really not that much of that area there.
Have you received the permit from IDEM to eliminate the wetlands?
Yes, we have. We're going to do an in lieu of fee mitigation, and we just got that last week. And so we'll be pursuing the acquisition of those credits, but we do have our permit.
I have a couple of things for you, Kevin. One thing is, this was brought up, I don't think it's on this list of 10 items. It has to do with easements for our public utilities. We may need to have some easements for water, sewer, and storm lines, so that if we're responsible for maintaining those, we'll need that access. So we may have to add easements to it.
Okay, that's certainly understandable. That won't be a problem at all. there.
Okay. The other thing is did we have any fence variances for this, for fence height?
We have a fenced area around the staff parking to the north side of the building, and I believe that height is 8 feet, son? Is 8 feet?
Okay. What type of fence is it?
It's a security chain link.
That may require a variance.
I'll have to look at the ordinance to see
We'll
for.
check the
if
zoning and
it's,
see.
I'm not sure if it makes allowances for correctional facilities or anything like that. Is it just agricultural that, where they're allowed, or do you know?
No, we
I'm
don't.
not sure. We'll have to check that.
You just might need to get another variance for the fence height, because all that's allowable is 6 feet.
Okay. We're going to need a taller fence to secure that area.
Yeah, I would assume so.
Thank you.
And if I could add to that, the drainage and utility easements that you will create, just make sure that we get those so that we can run them through our legal department to make sure in recordable form.
Other than that, we think we have a really good project. It's going to be, for a jail, it's going to be a pretty awesome structure, very much needed. The old jail is in not good shape. We've been down on population for the last few months when so much is different. That will not last forever.
My understanding, your plans are to break ground yet this fall.
Yes, we actually have a phase one site work out for bid right now, and that's just limited site work to get us to a point where we will be more comfortable moving forward, or maybe pausing again if we need to. And I think we anticipate being able to start that work in early September. Everything comes in good, and we get the approvals, through our side of things, through the county commissioners.
Understand it's probably an 18 to 24 month build out.
I think I have, 28? 24 to 28. We'll have really good weather, we'll make it 24.
Good luck.
Kevin, are you happy with what the town council offered you?
That's still under consideration by the commissioners.
We have to wait then.
Yes, I don't have any other info, I'm afraid. I wish I did.
Thank you.
Have any questions? The only thing I haven't heard yet, price figure project. Not out for,
Well, it's published in the study that we had done at the very beginning of this. The total expected expense with everything, that's pencils, chairs, everything that we need, all fees inclusive, is approximately $75 million.
tax dollars to me.
That just goes to show you what our facility would cost you. And it's not as intense. I've been in detail with Kevin about some of the stuff they have, but I certainly know firsthand when you talk about old buildings and trying to maintain them, it's a struggle. That gives you a value of our building we have here. I mean, I really appreciate this building, even though it gives me headaches all the time. Appreciate the building. Yes.
Kevin,
Any other questions?
yeah, just one. All the inmates there, they come from where? Or where are they allowed to come from?
Well, they come from throughout our county. They come from Marion County. Sometimes they will have to house state prisoners, but that's usually short-term and a rarity. I think the average mix is predominantly from Marion County.
Do those counties pay you to take care of them?
No.
To intern them?
No, the state does, but the counties.
It's all the state
Well,
thing.
I have to say that I'm not sure. I don't believe that the other counties do. That's not something I'm directly involved with. I do know that the state does, but I'm not sure that there's compensation from the other counties.
Okay, since this, you got anything? Huh? No. This is a public hearing, so right now I'll open it up to the audience. If anybody has anything they'd like to say, you're welcome to come forward and give their name and address and please. Okay, hearing none. I will close that portion of it. If there's questions, I would entertain to approve this site plan approval or disapprove it.
I make a motion to approve the site plan for the new jail, Hendricks County Jail.
Motion to approve it. Here a second. Have a motion and a second.
Mr. Pado?
Aye.
Mrs. Rimpert?
Aye.
Mr. Harvey?
Aye.
Mr. Thompson? Mr. Sheets?
Aye.
Mr. Van Leer?
Aye.
Vote aye as well.
Very good. Thank you very much.
We had 3 or 4 leave. Room for some more.
I think they wait.
Got any more? Yeah, I guess he does.
It's for the Harbor Homes.
How many? Okay, I was wondering if it was limited to 50.
Okay. Item C, public hearing. Request to rezone property located at 1269 East County Road 100 North from residential to R2 to planned unit development PUD, 137.11 acres.
Okay, I just wanted to make one comment. This property was annexed in 1994. I had someone ask when it was annexed and when it got the R2 zoning. I'm not sure when the R2 zoning was put in place. I am assuming it was done when the town went through some sort of an update on their zoning map. So I just wanted to get that out there so that everyone understood that the zoning, as long as I could find, has been R2. Paul Munoz is here.
Okay.
Good evening. My name is Paul Munoz. I'm here representing Arbor Homes. I'm joined by my colleagues, Caitlin Dofer and Christian Rector, who may at some point stand up to give some input if necessary to answer any questions. We do have a presentation here that was prepared. I'd like to just kind of walk through this. I know some of you are familiar with when we came through last year with Northwood Glen, just down the road. It was a 60-acre parcel that was developed, or that was for sale by the church. So we were looking at trying to develop that property, and a lot of the neighbors came out with concerns about the location of it and things of that nature. And so one of the overlying things that we heard multiple times was that we understand growth is going to be coming. It's just a matter of when, and we need to look at the properties that are currently zoned or ready for residential. And so we took some of that advice down the street and looked at this property here, which is already zoned for residential. And as you can see here, here's the outline of it. All that's outlined in yellow there. Excuse me. All that property that's outlined in yellow there. So move to the next one. So we started going through the process, and we came up with just a rough draft of what that would look like based on our current zoning, and brought that into staff. And discuss a little bit about the project and the scope and magnitude of it, look at utilities, have some general discussion. And that's when we were realizing that this is currently zoned R2. Density is roughly about 4 units per acre. Lot size is about 10,000 square feet. Front yard setbacks are 25 and your sides are 6, along with your minimum dwelling size is 1,100. As it stands right now in your current zoning ordinance, to come in under a straight zoning, there are no architectural standards, no buffer yard requirements, or no necessarily any requirements on the amount of open space within that district. And so in our discussions with staff, there was a little bit of back and forth deciding that is there an opportunity that we may be interested in looking at coming in as a PUD form, which most of you kind of know that a PUD is a good opportunity for a little bit of give and take between the developer and the city, to where we would, in this case, be able to get a little bit more density, a little bit more efficient layout, a little bit better layout that provides for some other key factors, which we'll discuss here in a minute, and a little bit better use of infrastructure throughout the project. In return, we would give up things such as buffer yards and architectural standards and more open space and more amenities that would be in the subdivision. And so that's when we came up.
I was going to say, just question real quick. In the straight zoning concept plan with the current R2 zoning, how many houses are you looking at on that?
It's about 360.
Okay.
Should we go to the next?
381, no.
391 and then in the PUD one. So we took some time, we brought forth this plan here to staff. Again, this is a PUD. Density on this one is only 2.8 units per acre. There's about 391 homes. Through this layout, we're actually preserving about 31% of that open space that's around there. As you can see, all the way around, there we go, all the way around the property, we've put in a 50-foot buffer. Originally, this started out with trees and mounding all the way up the side, along the front, and all the way wrapping around this property here. That would also be included in there, and we do have that as part of the landscape plan. And the list of how many trees per 100 lineal feet is all built into the PUD language. So that's guaranteed to be in there, along with 3 to 5 foot undulating mound that kind of provides a little bit more screening in those areas. And so after the conversation we had, we actually held a community outreach meeting earlier this month. I had several people there that were voicing some other concerns. We talked a little bit about that and tried to address some of those. We actually added some landscaping across this side here and across this side as well to screen some people who had either farmland or animals that they wanted a little bit more screening between them and adjacent use. Adjacent uses. So this is actually going to be, again, our traditional arbor product. It's 11 floor plans ranging from single to 2-story. Those are going to range in size from 1,300 square feet clear up to 3,200 square feet on a standard size home. Do offer the opportunity for bumps and garage extensions and everything else over the course of that. So there's opportunity to get even bigger than that as necessary. Same product we've been successfully building for over 25 years. It is quality, durable construction, and we would stand behind our construction with any of the other builders in the area. So one thing that does make us unique and different from most builders is that we have a brand new design center that we just built last year, just opened up. It's 3,900 square foot design center. It's professionally staffed. So rather than the older process of sitting in the model home and working out of a garage where you're looking at small samples of siding and colors and granite and whatever else may be in the home, we actually walk them through the entire process. And so you get to see full floors in place. You get to see full cabinets. In some cases, you get to touch all the doors and see the different colors that are going to be on there. We have multiple kitchens that are set up in the design center to be able to look at. As you can see here, we actually have the full front of a house that will kind of show you some about the trim and the siding colors and things of that nature as well. So this has actually been one of the things that has increased our customer satisfaction tenfold, seems like, because people really feel like they are a part of a larger opportunity and a larger process here. We are one of the only builders in the area, we are one of the only builders in the area that still does a lot of custom choices. Most of the other larger builders have gone to color palettes. So if you choose white on the front of your home, you're going to get black shutters, a certain color of trim, a certain color door, and certain other fixtures on the outside of the house. Same thing goes with kitchens, flooring. You choose a certain kitchen, you get a certain flooring. It really limits a lot of the uniqueness of those homes and the ability for people to be able to pick out exactly what they want to see in their homes. And by this design center and be able to walk them through the process, our buyers are able to do that and be able to customize their home as they see fit. So to conclude, we believe this is a great opportunity and a great project for the Danville area. Again, this is already currently zoned for residential, so it is planned in your long-term plan that this would become residential at some point or another. We do have trails and connectivity we are putting in there. There will be a path along the front of it, as long as one that extends up the left side of it off into the amenity area. Diversity in housing options. We put our own anti-monotony in place to make sure that certain houses can't be built next to others. Have over 61 different elevations, and that does not include brick colors, brick changes, brick options, color options, siding, trim types, things of that nature as well. And with the help of staff, we feel like we've come up with a really good layout that helps provide a good quality buffer between us and adjacent uses, as well as is unique in its layout and winding roads and isn't just a complete grid pattern as well. So enhanced landscaping, we've really feel like we've added quite a few trees to that, along with the mound. That's going to be able to provide a nice quality front on there as well. And we really believe that with the durability of our construction and the quality of our product and the layout of this subdivision, that it's going to be just as beautiful in year 20 as it is in year 1.
That 31% include the lakes,
Yes. Yeah.
detention pond, or are they all lakes?
They'll all be full of water, so they'll all be lakes.
What do the homes cost? What are they cost?
So we are projecting that the average is probably going to be somewhere in the 250, 260 range. And that's as we're starting. So as you go through the process, understanding that this is going to be built out in sections. So you're probably talking at least 10 to maybe 11 years before you'd have final full build out of the proper project. We're seeing on average about a 10 to 15% increase in our overall home values. So that's going to edge up as this project gets built out.
So, some of the things I feel is that it's a little bit different world today. And we first had the virus, and a lot of the companies sent everybody home. And a lot of them worked from home. And as I understand, a lot of them are going to stay home and work because they're finding out that it's efficient and, stop the drive-in, the cost of more spaces in town. And then we had the riots. And then we see a lot of people from these big towns are going to want to move out. It'll probably take them a year or so, but I think they're starting to eye places like Danville and that to live in. So I think that the cost of homes would go up for the people that live here. I don't think I would sell my house right now and wait. And the quality of your homes may even be advantage to make a better quality home. One of the things that I put up in the town council was to promote porches. The town of Danville, the old houses there, I just love. I'm jealous I don't have a porch, but everybody else does. I see there are people in town that have groups of porch clubs, and possibly in your plans here, I see a couple of nice houses with porches on them. Are they able to choose all these plans, or do we have to say only 3 plans they can choose?
So they'll be able to choose all of the plans that we have. And so the way we've written the PUD, we've provided some securities and assurities to the council and to Plan Commission as well that we're going to meet certain architectural standards, but at the same time, we know that within all of the plans that we have, that we can meet those and people be able to provide a very broad variety of house plans available to the buyers. We try to make sure that we can give them about every option available. And what's unique about this is our product's actually 40 feet wide on average. And so with the lots being at 60 feet, that offers up the opportunity for third car garages, for bumps, for all kinds of changes amongst the actual homes as you go through there. So as you're driving down there, you're not going to get the same exact side yard setback all the way down through. You're going to get a lot of variety and diversity in those homes.
Okay, thank you.
So as a PUD that would be built out in sections, are the exact same architectural standards consistent throughout all phases?
Sure.
Or do those deteriorate over time?
So once you guys put into place the ordinance or the PUD, those standards are binding on the entire legal description of the property. So in a case like a straight zoning where it's R2 and no standards, we could come in and build through several sections and decide that it's just not working for us out here, and then you'd get another builder and it'd be a whole different set of standards. With this PUD, and knock on wood, since we've started Inception 24 years ago, we've never left a subdivision that we've started or that we've come in to build in. But if something were to happen, God forbid, those standards would be in place. So the next person that comes in, if they were going to try to build in that area, would have to meet those exact same standards.
Greg, just to clarify, when they come in for building permits, this document that you have in your packet, that's what we will be comparing those plans to.
Okay,
So
thank you.
anything that's in here is what they will have to adhere to.
So are you comfortable with the recommendations that staff made? The roof overhang?
Sure, I think we've discussed that. It's primarily the language we've got in there already. Am I correct?
Yeah, well, there were a few additional things when I did the staff report. Like one of them is the vinyl gauge to be .44. Did you read through some of this then?
Apologize, I didn't see that you had those additional comments.
This was
So
included in the packet, so if you, these items down here. Sorry. Right,
So you've increased
may be
the
some
vinyl
in there.
gauge?
I'm sorry.
You've increased the gauge of the vinyl?
Right, I think they were proposing .42, yeah, and I think .44 is kind of standard.
It's more acceptable, yeah.
Right. I did a little bit of research. That seems to be the standard, so.
we don't have any issue with the .44 on the gauge. The minimum roof overhangs we do have in there, I believe that it was 12 and 8 whenever you're up against brick, so that would be the only thing we would ask for. We're still fine with meeting a 12 any time it's against vinyl.
The one question I had on the PUD itself, maybe you've addressed this already, is if you go down to the amenities,
Yeah.
where it says recommended by staff, is that something that we are going to work through, or is that saying that we didn't have any recommendations? Because I would prefer a trail out front at the minimum, because that's an area where we're wanting to extend a lot of sidewalks, and that connectivity is very important to our parks, because the parks are really close to this site. I think a way to get them from there to the parks is pretty important. So in the front, and I saw in the drawings, you have something out front, I'm not sure what that is, but, you know, an 8-foot trail would be really nice out front.
Problem with the trail across the front, yeah, that was part of what we originally had discussed. Sidewalks being at 5 foot, we have no problem with. Fences and utility easements, we don't have any problem with. Mailboxes being all the same in size and stature is no big deal. The only thing we would want to discuss is the masonry around the perimeter of the property. Probably look at all of those that would align the 10th Street or the 100 North, maybe doing a wainscot or something of that nature, so you have brick around all three sides of it, along with whatever we put on the front of it, if that would be amenable.
What is the current development standard for the perimeter of property with respect to brick and stone?
There is none.
And you were proposing, what, 25%?
So we do a wainscot around all of those that align 10th Street. So yeah, it would be
That's the perimeter.
not the entire perimeter, just those that are along the arterial road. So everything that backs up or is located along that thoroughfare, the outside road.
I see in the staff recommendations that they're thinking about adding wording to the development standards that require all homes along the perimeter to be constructed of brick, stone, cultured stone, masonry, masonite, or wood. If such a standard were in place, would you all consider it to be binding on you?
I don't think we could do that on the standards if it was all perimeter homes around the subdivision. because that'd be a substantial number of homes. That would require a brick wrap on those. If you're looking at doing it on both, so then it would be 2 floors, limiting a lot of the homes that would be built in those areas, because we find that a lot of our buyers aren't really interested in the first floor brick wrap or the full brick wrap. They like the brick on the front or the wainscot in most cases. They're more interested in spending the more interested in spending the money on extensions, square footage, granite countertops, interior options that are going to provide more value to what they do on a day-to-day basis. They just don't see the total value in a brick wrap on a home, especially if it's forced on a perimeter.
I don't know if you can answer this or not, but how does the estimated value or cost of the homes in this particular development compare to other homes in kind of the immediate surrounding area? I mean, is it equal to, above, below?
So we did just a quick analysis based on what is south of us in those neighborhoods, as well as some of what's along the actual 10th Street Road. And since 2017, there's been 211 sales. 15 of those have been new builds. Overall, across all 211 of those, the average was $199,000. So we will be in excess of what is currently around us.
If you remained R2, the number of units that could be built was 360. Did I understand
Correct.
you? Thank you.
Yes.
I have a question. Along the perimeter, would you be willing to make that commitment for adjacent to existing homes? Along.
Are you talking full brick, those homes?
Wood or, could be a combination along the west boundary and the east boundary.
Would we be able to work on a wainscot on those homes, even around those sides as well? Because we could do a wainscot, and we could do a rear protrusion, a rear break. So it'd be sunroom, screened-in porch, covered patio to provide some break in the back of the home to give a little bit of diversity, as well as a wainscot. And we can also agree to that 1,500 on those. That's no problem. Yeah.
So if we pass this tonight, all the things that you've said need to be in there, and what you've just talked about, that he's agreed to, if somebody does make a motion.
Yeah, and I would be in favor of identifying those lots at some point,
Sure.
so that we're not, when I go to
Right.
review these permits, I need to know what lots are
Yes.
going to require
No,
this rear.
we'll take that plan and put into place an indicator on the actual concept
Okay.
plan that'll tell you where all of that's at.
Perfect.
Do I understand that there will be a minimum of 12 feet between buildings?
Correct.
So the end of his house, this house is 12 feet in between.
Yeah, so we've actually, it was one of the concerns from the community meeting that we held, because it was originally 5 and 10. Went back and looked at the ordinance, and we agreed to 5 and 12. That gives us the ability to be able to, we manage all of that in-house. So through our lot release ordinances, we keep track of what house goes on what lot to make sure we can all constantly maintain that 12 feet. So we will be meeting at least a minimum of the R2 standards.
And the current standards are 15?
No, 6 feet, so it'll be 12 feet.
Will the development have a HOA?
Yes, yeah.
And do you guys have any, I don't even know if you can do this or not, but like, one common concern that's expressed by the public is the amount of rentals that may be in a development like this. Does an HOA hold anything to that to limit the overall number of rentals? Or like in a new development like this, is it primarily owner-occupied homes?
So we do not make a practice of selling to businesses. We sell to buyers and to families that are looking to live in those homes. Now, that's not saying that somebody couldn't come in and go all the way through the process, close underneath their house, underneath their name, and then move it over to an LLC. We can't control that once they've closed on it. But we do not allow people to come in and buy for the purpose of renting homes out. Some HOAs are still working on how you can control that number of rentals, and I know that it's kind of a fine line in legislation that has to do with that. We're looking at it in a couple of other areas where this has been a question of concern, and so we can try to have a full answer on that before the town council meeting. Yeah.
There be any way any of these other common areas to be made into?
Sure. So we've got the one amenity area because that's where we're planning on actually putting the park space and the playground area, things of that nature. But some of the other common areas that are in there are just going to be open for kids to be able to play soccer and football or whatever else the case may be. And then along the trail that runs up into the amenity area, we normally try to put trees along there as well, maybe a bench or two to give people the opportunity to sit. So we normally keep them, the HOAs are responsible for keeping them pretty well mowed to allow kids to be able to enjoy them any way they see fit.
I do like the 12-foot separation. I think it's a very good compromise. Seeing as how the R2 is 12-foot separation.
Yeah.
So it matches the existing zoning. The actual lot coverage is less. We're at 4 per acre. This is 2.9, 2.8.
2.8.
It looks like you guys had a traffic study as well, and the traffic study showed the traffic should be minimally affected. Is that correct?
We actually had our traffic engineers come out and take a look at that per staff's comments.
Are the traffic engineers your in-house people?
No. Nope. All our traffic engineering is done through a third party who does them. It's A&F Engineering. They do the majority of them across central Indiana. Been doing it for years and are very well versed in it. So if you want, I'll just read you the conclusion based on the traffic study. I think you guys may have a copy of it already. Based on the traffic study data, capacity analysis results, the general traffic volumes for the proposed development will increase delay by 1.1 seconds per vehicle during the AM peak hours and 3.6 seconds per vehicle during the PM peak hours. Additionally, the intersection will continue to operate well above the lowest capacity acceptable for your level of service. Therefore, it can be concluded that the additional traffic added to the proposed Northwood Haven development will not adversely impact the surrounding roadway network. Talking about just mere seconds, it would potentially add to the time at that during peak hours of traffic.
That's 1.1 seconds per car.
Per car, correct. So if you're sitting there at the intersection and it normally takes you 9 seconds to get all the way through, it would take you 10.1 seconds. So 1 second longer.
That's at peak time, is that correct?
That's at peak time, and that's done when the largest percentage of traffic is moving according to the international traffic study.
So with all those homes, that's another 800 cars coming out of there.
But it's all at varied times. You see, that's the key. It's not like everybody's leaving exactly at 7 o'clock every morning and coming back at 5 o'clock every morning. There's kind
Oh,
of
no,
diversity.
when I get out of the house, they're all leaving. They
It always
watch.
seems that way, doesn't it?
How many people? 1,100?
I couldn't tell you that, honestly.
300 and say 400
Varies.
homes? 2.5 persons house? What's the average amount of people in a home?
That varies. I mean, so our 1,600 square foot ranch, the Bradford, is actually more popular with those that are empty nesters. So you may be talking 1 or 2 in a case like that. So I honestly couldn't give you a figure to that one. I do know that the demographers that work for the school use a new home coming into a subdivision or coming into a community at 0.8 students per home.
So if you've got 800 cars, you got to have 800 people to drive.
I mean, I couldn't give you the 800 number because it could vary.
Has this been brought to the school superintendent?
Yes. We actually met with him about 2 weeks ago as well.
There is response.
He's got the capacity to be able to handle the subdivision. Yeah.
Just from past experience, they are wanting growth. There's a need there for that.
And he brought up a really interesting way to look at it, and that's something that we hadn't really thought too much about, is if you're talking about a 10-year build-out, some of the kids that are coming in lower grades will be all the way out before kids coming in the back of the neighborhood are coming in. As well as if you're talking about an average of anywhere from 40 to 50 homes a year, which is what we feel this is probably going to sell at, that's about 40 kids based on the demographers that they use, and that's over 13 grades. So you're talking about an average of maybe 3 kids a grade if it was spread out over the entire thing. So I know it sounds like a lot coming in all at once. This is because of the size of it, this is a long build out, a long process. Those kids are going to be moving through as other kids are coming in, and it's not as many kids as you would normally think coming in on an annual basis.
I think one thing that kind of comes to mind for me too is, to me at least, I mean, those are fairly high-value homes, which are only going to add to the tax base, which I'm sure the school would benefit from.
Yeah, it seems like the biggest thing that they're looking at is the money follows the kids in the schools anymore. The tax base, because of the caps, isn't providing their biggest source. So it's what they get per kid. So it's going to be a help to them.
The only other question I have is, can you explain the difference between a 3-lot snapshot and what you're proposing for the no same elevation adjacent or across? Is that basically the same thing? Because you have one on each side of the home, and then you can't copy that same home directly across the street, is that?
Correct, yes. Yeah, so Bradford B couldn't be built on either side of an existing or directly across the street. Yep,
Okay.
that is correct.
You say the minimum lot size is 7,200 feet.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have a maximum lot size?
Maximum lot size will probably be somewhere in the 1,500 to 2,000 if you're talking about on a pie-shaped lot on a cul-de-sac. I think the overall average in there is roughly about 8,400, maybe a little more.
What is that, a quarter of an acre?
Yes, pretty close.
A little over 10,000. Quarter.
Yeah,
Quarter, 10,000?
quarter, so
3,560.
yes, you're correct. I apologize.
So I do have one other thing, talking about drainage. I know we've talked about this already. I just want to bring it up in a public meeting that we do need to look at really deep into this. If this project gets approved, it gets that far, need to look at the drainage going through other properties, because I can tell you that we have an issue downstream, and we need to keep that in mind when we're building this site.
Sure, and we've been in talks with staff as well as our engineers have been looking at that and studying the site and some of the drainage routes that we talked about in the last meeting. And so with this just being the zoning part of it right now, once we get into primary plat and looking at easements and connectivity and get into construction plans, all of that stuff will be weeded out to where we can figure out how all of that's going to go through.
Questions from anybody on this board? Okay. Since this is a public hearing, the audience can speak. May I remind you, this is a zoning. Thank you. I'm sure there are concerns about drainage. However, right now, it's farm ground and the water runs off as it wants. That will be addressed at a site plan review. First part of it will be. Because they cannot build something that's going to allow more water to go off of that than's going off of it now at any one given moment. Is that correct? Water has to get away, but it'll be controlled, and that's why they've got 5 lakes or something. There's no sense bringing it up. We can't just, nothing we can do about it tonight. No, it has to be addressed and will be before we can approve the site. So, traffic's another thing. We've done a traffic study, or isn't this a study that was done some time ago before the COVID-19?
Actually,
current?
last week.
So, maybe a little misleading because of the people that are working from home now.
So prior to July 1st, the traffic engineers were not doing traffic studies. Since then, they have performed several of them across central Indiana, realizing the numbers are back up in some cases where they were before. These numbers that you see here are actually more than what it was when we studied it a year ago. in comparison with the initial numbers. So there was more traffic going through this time than there was even when we studied it a year ago. So we feel pretty confident that these are accurate numbers and that this is an accurate study.
This time I will open this up for a public meeting, public hearing. If you do wish to speak, please come up to the microphone, give your name and address, and then say your piece.
My name's Max Stutz. I'm at 1414 10th Street. I've lived there, same place, 42 years. And I know, Mr. Thompson, you said you didn't want to, you would address the drainage situation at a later meeting, but I'd like to mention something, if I may. For 6 years, I've been dealing with that 137 acres because Rex Parsons drained that 137 acres over on my neighbor's property, and then it directly went down to my pond, flooded my pond, wiped out my driveway. I've been dealing with it for 6 years. Now, when the Roden Estates came in, I didn't have any opposition to them building homes. The only issue was fix the water problem. The builder at that time said they would have a 90% fix on it. In reality, they made the situation worse. They put concrete culverts, directed all the water off that 137 acres to the pond, wiped me out again. I met with Rex Parsons and also Steve Ward, which I like both of them, but Rex said perhaps he didn't put the drain deep enough and getting a lot of surface water. He would change that. Of course, he's got very sick, and that's never happened. Now, I only knew about this addition 2 weeks ago, so I come home, and they're surveying on my property. I asked the surveyor, what are you doing? He says, well, we're looking at water situation off that 137 acres. Now, I said, now you're looking at the water. Although Barry looked at the situation and tried to help. So even though with these retention ponds, what kind of guarantee do I have that that's going to solve the problem? Because I don't have a guarantee, because they're looking at other options. Because there's a heck of a lot of water that comes off that 137 acres. So one option was to go right down my driveway between Gary Muir and myself and do an underground drain into the creek and spill the water take the water south. Well, will that mean that I've got a buffer of a privacy of trees and that? Will they wipe all that out? And what guarantee do I have that they are going to fix it? This is my problem.
Like I said, we can't do anything about it tonight, other than it has to be designed to not create more runoff than is coming off of it now.
Well, my question...
That's what the lakes are there for. Catch that water and release it later.
Okay. Well, we didn't request that for the Roten Estates.
I know, but he
Yeah.
said he had problems
So
downstream. and
let me
that's
explain the difference between those two. Roton Estates is an RE1, and I won't dwell on drainage because I do it all the time, because I know this is not the place to do that. But I also know your situation firsthand. Roton Estates was an exempt subdivision. It did not have to follow our subdivision control ordinance. which controls the release of water. This specific subdivision does. So the release rates have to be slower over a period of time than what they currently are. Now, what I can tell you is they will not exceed what they are now, but what we can't guarantee you is that that's going to solve the problem.
Yeah.
In most situations, it helps.
Yes.
The problem that you have is just like you said, you've got 137 acres of a farm field that's put under drains in, and when it rains, it comes directly to you. We, or the town, or the state of Indiana do not control that. Farmers are exempt from stormwater runoff.
Yeah.
And that, not pointing a finger at anybody, I mean, love farmers, got to have them. But we can't control that here. That is one of those things, and I know you and I have had this discussion a few times.
Yeah.
That's why I wanted to make it a point that we will address that as much as possible, because down the road, the town and everybody that lives in town is going to benefit from us fixing this problem. It needs to get to the creek some way rather than through your property. But you also have to think about, you have to have a natural waterway coming through there, or you will not have a pond. Because it will dry out if we direct all the water away from you. So it's a tough balance. We have to make sure that when, like Tommy said, the engineering, the time for you to come in is when we go through the site plan, the development of the site, to make sure that we are doing our due diligence. The engineers are doing their calculations, because that's what it is. It's calculations and the numbers. The pipe will only allow so much water through it, and that's how they get their numbers. I can just tell you that it will be addressed, because that, from day one, we have talked about drainage on this, because I know there's several in the room, maybe several, that have to deal with that drainage at some point. Now, years, you may not even have a flood. Some years, you may have 10. It's all about our rain events, and that's another thing none of us control. So,
Excuse me, Mr. Lofton, can you speak into your microphone, please? Apparently, some can't hear you.
yes, ma'am, sorry about that.
Thank you.
So the idea is that it will be addressed. We're looking at some pretty in-depth fixes. But we're not sure that we have that in our head yet. First of all, we got to get this rezone taken care of. It's got to get through the council before anything's in the ground moving dirt.
Okay, well, I just want to address it. I've got pictures, unbelievable pictures of the amount of water and the damage it has done on my expense. And it floods my neighbor's property as well. And it never did that. I lived there 30-some years, never did that until the drain was done.
And
So-
I'm not going to beat a dead horse, but that all happened when those field tiles went in the ground.
That's right.
Mr. Stutz, we're going to have to wrap it up. We have 2 sheets of people that want to speak, so we need to try to limit the time.
No problem.
Anything that anyone says of concerns, please try not to repeat those concerns. Just, move on to the next concern. Thank you.
My name's Dennis Thompson. I live 1516 Caroline Court. Anybody's not familiar with that area, my neighbors behind me face 10th Street, directly across from this addition. I am one house away from Virginia Drive. Now, look at the design of this thing. There are no exits from this almost 400 homes. Somewhere north of 800 cars, all has to come out onto 10th Street. That's an awful lot of traffic on 10th Street. Another concern is the main entrance to this is right directly across from Virginia, which is going to cause people coming out of there, if they're going to go to the post office, they're going to go to Walmart, they're going to go to the hardware store, they're going to go to pizza place, what are they going to do? They're going to cut right down Virginia. They're not going to go over to 200 and go down to Walmart. They're going to cut right down Virginia and go through Temple and Old Farm and significantly increase the amount of traffic through there, and probably a few more of the idiots that want to drive way, way too fast with all these children that are used to a quiet neighborhood. So I would like to suggest that they move that entrance exit off of that property away from Virginia Drive, up to the east a little ways, or the west a little ways, which would discourage people from shooting right straight across and cutting through those other subdivisions. And I know they said they did a traffic study, but you know and I know that any traffic study that's been done since the first of the year isn't worth a dime because of so many people at home because of COVID. So it's really not an accurate traffic study. So you figure with that many homes, you're going to have somewhere north of 800 cars coming in and out of that addition, probably way north. Most families have at least 2 cars, and with the price range here, you're going to have people that have children. If they've got teenagers, now you've got 3 or 4 cars per house. So it's going to be a lot of traffic. And I think, and it's all coming out on to 10th Street and right directly across from Virginia. So if they can't, I understand there's not a whole lot they can do about 10th Street, but I would strongly suggest they move that entrance over so they're not coming right straight across into Virginia, because that's going to be too much of a temptation for them to just shoot right across there and down through those additions. So, you know, I have other concerns, but there's a lot of people want to talk, so that was my primary concern. I'll just let it go with that. Thank you.
I hear you.
Thanks.
Good evening, I'm Nancy Marsh. We live at 1406 Money Lane, which is right in the curve of 10th and Money Lane. Mr. Stutz is our neighbor, so we have the water issues too, but it's not the time or place. I've been to more of these meetings than I care to be at. I've heard every reason, excuse, and I'm not anti-development, but I'm anti-high density development. Just look at Brownsburg and Avon for your roadmap to what high density does to all the services. It's just not Danville. It's the county, it's the jail, it's the animal control, it's everything. It's a whole package. And high density, as beautiful as those homes look, and I may even want to move to one of them, high density is just not where we need to go. It was a disaster in Brownsburg, a disaster in Avon. They were building a school every year. What does a school do? Shoots property taxes up. If we dump 800 kids in schools, they don't have room for 800 kids. We will be building a school. And I know the school is promoting students because they get state money for it. But high density is just a disaster in my opinion. As I said, we live right on the curve. Since we've lived there 14 years, we've had, I'd say, between 25 and 50 people, including Saturday night, through our yard. We've got a big front yard. We've got a half-acre front yard. Through our yard, cut down a tree over into the Wexford addition because of that straight shot and the 90-degree turn. It's dangerous. We bought it. We own it, so it's dangerous. So to add that much traffic is just doesn't seem reasonable to me. And I don't want to come across as anti-development because I'm not, and I don't want to be a person that, I wanted to move to Danville, but I don't want anybody else to. But it just needs to be more controlled. And I know it's hard for the developers to make money without a lot of houses, but that's not our fault. So anyway, thank you.
Just to kind of get a general feel, because I'm just kind of curious. Like on 10th Street, to the south of 10th Street, I mean, it looks like there are a lot of homes there currently. Is that something that you would quantify as high density development?
No. What?
Yeah, the subdivisions on the south side of the road.
Yeah, I was curious to what Whisperwood, how many houses are in there compared to this one, or what the density was.
It's an R2, there's 10,000 square feet per acre, but if you look at I'm a numbers person. If you look at these numbers, the density is actually less. You've got 2.8 homes per acre versus 4 homes per acre. And I go back to the R2 versus the PUD. If you count the differences between the R2 and the PUD, the only thing we're losing, and I say this, is the only thing we're losing is that 10,000 square foot lot. That is it. I mean, and this is not to say this is a threat or this is thing, but somebody could come in here and develop without any architectural commitments and build almost as many houses, and what do you have? You have the same problem that you've got with this. To me, it's always about the value of the home. The traffic studies, the drainage are the two most important things in my mind. But if you go out to Four Oaks, and if anybody's lived in Danville and they drive on East Main Street, you know, they put that development in, started in 2013, it is complete. And
Right.
I haven't really noticed, I live on that road, and I haven't noticed that big of a traffic change. And I'm just being honest. I mean,
But most people are headed toward town. They're not headed toward Danville to work.
well,
So it's, your demographics are
it's kinda-
different.
It's a little bit unique.
Yeah.
But I have to compare it to that because that's what I have to compare it to, because I'm out there every day. So just want to say that if we look at the overall comparison, I don't think we're losing much here.
I was township trustee, and I'll say this fast, when Brixton was proposed in Pittsboro. It was promoted as retirement homes, no kids, built out over 10 years. I kid you not, they put a house up while I was at the grocery store one day, and it was built out in a year, and they run 4 school buses through there. So, I mean, you just don't know what's going to happen. People are going to move out here, want to move out here. It might build out in a year, which would be good for the developer, but that's all.
Thanks.
Good evening, Mark Mueller, 1596 10th Street. I'm the lot right there in the middle, kind of surrounded by 3 sides. So, and I've lived here for 4+ years. And I sent some questions to Lisa. Hopefully you got those. One, I thought they needed a little more detail on the landscaping plan. Saying you're going to put trees in is fine, but I think it needs to be a little more specific about like how big they are, how tall they are. I thought the number was a little light. Where I talked about traffic. You know, I don't want to talk about drainage, but when I look at this plan, you know, to the west of me, lot 384, I mean, we don't need much rain, half-inch rain, and that, I mean, there's a water stand there for, you know, a couple weeks. You go by there a day and it's got water standing, so, which kind of drives another thing. Canadian geese love that. They love that area. So I think, you know, geese control with all these retention ponds we need to think about. The last item, you talked about this brick wainscoting. You know, I'd like to make sure that includes lots 372 to 384. That would be around me, kind of the, you know, a buffer, so. Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Paul, would that be considered along 10th Street, those lots that?
As far as the brick wainscot?
Yes.
Yeah, we could consider that. That wouldn't be a problem. And just to speak to one real quick point on that, the actual PUD has full language on the size of the mound, the size of the trees, the number of shrubs, and the density of all of those plants. All of that language is written into the actual language on the PUD.
Good evening, Gordon Cotton, 369 Meadow Drive. That's the Old Farm area. I live on a street that is right now a thoroughfare going from Old 36 back to the north. A lot of traffic on that street. And it's been brought up before that one entrance will bring more traffic down that street as they come through. I lived for 22 years in a place in Kansas that knew how to plan for this kind of stuff. They required the developer to escrow money to improve the road down to the next major road to handle the traffic. I would suggest that you may consider something like that. I drive 10th Street a lot. I drive for the senior center, so I'm on 10th Street a lot. 800 cars on 10th Street, 1 second a car. If you're the 800th car, that's a long time to wait to get through the 200 Street stop sign. And if you turn down 200, then you gotta go around that roundabout. If any of you don't live on 10th Street, then this doesn't affect you. But it does all these folks behind me and me. So I would ask you to consider that the developer do something with that road. If he has to escrow it and add that into this lot price, then that's what he's got to do, because that's what they did out there. I moved into a subdivision like that when I moved out there, 2-lane gravel road. In 2 years, it was a 4-lane boulevarded road because the money was escrowed. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Greg Ternay. My wife and I live at 1109 Judith Lane, which is on the west side of the development. And we're going to share probably 1,200 foot of property line with the development. I've had the opportunity to meet with Mr. Munoz and discuss my concerns and discuss this development. And to be honest with you, I'm in favor of a PUD. I guess I realize that regardless of what goes on tonight, this development's going to get built. So you might as well do the right thing and put in a situation where you can barter a little bit and we can get some improvement for the town. I kind of disagree on the fact that drainage can't be addressed tonight. I've been living with it ever since we built. I provided you guys pictures that kind of shows it at its worst. There's an existing drainage problem that needs to be fixed. Barry's well aware of it. We've discussed different things. You guys have the opportunity now to fix this and fix it with a partner. So make a favorable recommendation, but make it with the commitment that this drainage is going to get fixed. Because it can very easily be brought down their property to 10th Street and straight to the creek, and it can fix all the drainage for all the neighbors that are south of me that are currently dealing with it. Thank you.
Hey, my name is Matthew Dakin, 1702 10th Street. I'll be right near next to that great big retention pond. Heard somebody say something about geese a while back. Yeah, that'll be a problem. I guess it's going to happen anyway, but I'd be in favor of no homes there. But what are you going to do about the increased noise that's going to be coming out there? I work nights. And I'm going to have a heck of a time getting to sleep with all the dogs and cars and music and et cetera. What can be done about that? Anything? Light pollution. Anything can be done about that? They say the property value is not going to drop. I mean, the type of homes going in there is going to be great. Sounds great. My problem is the number of homes and the close proximity to us. That will drop my property value when it comes time to sell it. And I think you all know that. Another concern I have, big one, be the water system. You guys got for increasing water volume. Not so much pressure, volume. I've heard a lot of concerns about a problem with water or lack of it. My volume, whatever you want to call it, with the 5 homes that's been built right around me. Now you put another 400 in there? Well, how are we going to increase that? What's happening? Schools, that's another issue. I know animal control, or the lack thereof in this county, and there's going to be a big problem with that right there. And I can go into a lot more detail with that if you like, but I think you know my gist of it. Thank you.
Anyone else?
My name is Lynn Brown, and my address is 1700 10th Street. I have a question about the traffic study that was done. I do not feel that it is an accurate portrayal of our situation. One, we are under a pandemic, maybe lifted somewhat, but the traffic study was done in July. School was not in session. When school is in session, there is much more traffic. Teachers, buses, teens who are driving. I do not feel that that traffic study was done at a fair time to give us an accurate portrayal of what I experience when I'm leaving my home every morning. And I would like for that to be reconsidered and studied further. Thank you.
My name is Jonathan Meyer. I live at 1502 Caroline Court. Live there at the corner of Virginia, Caroline. I have the water utility and the fire plug that runs down the side of our property along with the easement. I would like to know where this development is going to tap into the water system and utilities, because that could affect, if it is going to be tied in from Temple Estates across 10th Street, that's going to create, construction there for my property and the property just north of mine. Thank you.
Get my mask off. I'm Annette Leister, and I live at 1535 Caroline Court, and I know they've talked a lot about traffic. My big concern is going down 10th Street. It's pretty narrow, and especially when the kids are out catching the school bus. And it's kind of dark, and, so I don't know if there's plans to do anything about widening that or what they're going to do. But my concern is for the kids. There's been days where I leave, and it's dark, and it's hard to see. And there's a lot of kids on that street. I appreciate it.
Good evening. My name is Thomas Grenman. I live at 1722 10th Street. It's good to see you guys again. There's something I don't understand about the R2 versus the PUD. I'm in favor of more of the R2, but I don't understand why we can't incorporate some of the architectural standards from the PUD with the R2 layout, meaning less dense homes. Is there a reason why that can't be done?
The R2 zoning doesn't have any kind of architectural commitments, and that is an ordinance. That ordinance would have to be changed.
Right, but doesn't any plan for development have to go before the board?
No.
To be approved?
No.
There are no architectural standards in the zoning ordinance, period. Any zoning district, there's no minimum standards. So you could build a vinyl side house, a brick house, whatever pitch roof you want, but there's no standards. So with the PUD, then that allows us a little bit of leverage to get those standards. But currently, the Danville zoning ordinance has no architectural standards, minimum standards.
Reason why we can't lessen the density of this development to an R2 standard using the PUD.
So the R2 standard is 4 units per acre, is my understanding, and this PUD would be at 2.8 units per acre, so it would actually be less dense than the actual R2.
Yeah.
So I guess I'm just I'm asking is because I feel like it's a little contradictory. You would like the R2 standards, which is 4 units per acre, but you want it less dense than a PUD. So can you clarify that a little bit?
Their density right now says 2.81.
Yes. And R2 is 4.
And they are counting all of the open areas, correct? We're wanting bigger lot sizes, less houses.
So, yeah, that's really the thing, is you want a bigger lot.
Right.
So in an R2, your lot difference between this one on average is 2,000 square feet. That is the difference.
Okay. The main difference I think we're looking for, a lot of us, we understand that we can't tell a property owner what to do with their property. It's zoned R2 now. Arbor Home said they're going through with whatever. If the PUD gets shut down, it's going to be an R2. Okay. I'm all about property rights. They can do what they want. But I think where our main concern is, a lot of us, is 400 houses versus 360 houses.
Well, the difference is 30 homes.
Right. We'll take anything we can get.
So, yeah, I get that.
Yeah,
all right.
I think the trade-off is the type of homes that you can negotiate, what you can put into those homes compared to what could go there. I think that's the trade-off between that 2,000 square feet and the larger lot.
Right.
You know, that's what you're getting. You know, basically, to me, home values, what the home is, drives home values. It's sometimes location, but that I just learned something today about redlining a home. Basically, it's a location thing, and that's maybe 1% of what's built in America. It's all about what the home is. They're not going to do comparable homes based on where you live. They're going to compare this home to that home. When you go do property values, they compare the home to another like home. That's how they come up with the values. That's what I understand. So the lot size can come into effect if you're somebody that wants a larger lot. You're typically not going to move into a subdivision, because subdivisions are known to have smaller lot sizes.
Right.
So I think the.
Sir, if you could step up to the microphone, please, I appreciate it.
I'll share with you, man.
The 20 acres north of me somehow ended up where it had to be 5-acre lots. Why does it have to be R2 or PUD? What else is the option? What other options have we got for less homes? Larger lots?
It's already zoned to R2.
Can't change it.
Not unless the owner requests it.
And just to address, I mean, I think one thing to maybe keep in mind is there is probably, you know, a set of people that want those larger lot sizes, but there's also a lot of people that just want to own a home. You know, we're currently kind of experiencing a housing shortage. I mean, Hendricks County is growing tremendously with a lot of demand for
Right.
the quality schools. So to say that, you know, all of these lots need to be a half acre, you know, even an acre, you're shutting a lot of potential homeowners and new Danville citizens out,
But
just kind of based on what you want, though.
What you lose out of one group, you're gaining in another. And we are building 400 homes east of on 100 North, correct?
I would just assume that Arbor Homes wouldn't propose this if they didn't think the demand was there.
Well, yeah, you're going to get someone in there to buy it, but you'll get someone to buy $1 million house that sits on 137 acres.
Well, it comes down to, our decision is either this or the R2.
Okay, and I
with
see some,
this, we have some control over standards and how they're built, whereas with the R2, as Lisa explained, we don't have, they'll just be vinyl.
I get that.
And there'll be fewer by 30.
Right.
But they're just gonna.
But I hear a lot of
I'm not saying
negoti-
that that's what they would do. We don't have any leeway. on
I'm hearing a lot of negotiation on brick wraps and open areas and stuff. Can we negotiate less dense property?
Specifically speaking, the whole idea of a PUD is to allow for more lots for sale. That is the reality of a PUD. So that is their main tool to gain more lots for sale. I would say, I can't speak for Paul, but the whole point of a PUD and having smaller lots with less density is the whole goal. So they probably wouldn't, we can ask you the question, is that something that you would be willing to do, is make larger lot sizes?
To speak to that point, that is the give and take in a PUD, is that the density provides the opportunity for us to be able to have more homes to sell, which then provides the opportunity for us to be able to afford the other things that go into the PUD, such as all of the trees that we're planting, the buffers that we're putting in, the amenities that we're putting in, as well as it affects that home price as well. So larger lots, infrastructure costs are soaring on an annual basis, so is land costs. And so while you're looking at trying to hit a target market with a target buyer at a certain price point for what we think is going to be successful in this area, if we have to go to larger lots and more infrastructure and more roads and all the things that are accompanied with a larger lot, then we have to find somewhere that there's a give and take there to be able to keep it in where our buyers are looking to build in the area at. And so that's when you lose the architecturals and other things that go along with that we would not be able to provide.
And I think he's selling this in a way that the only people out there wanting to buy houses are buying these houses. And that's just not the case. There's a big cross-section of people who have different wants, different needs. These will probably be first-time home buyers, a lot of empty nesters. If you build a better house with larger lot sizes to fit what's already surrounding that area, I'm to the east of it. I have a couple friends to the west of it. Those are 5-acre lots. I don't know what's on Judith Lane, how big they go, but
10.
yeah. I mean, you're dropping 400 houses in an area that doesn't fit, and we're just looking for a little help there.
But you're also talking $750,000 homes
Right.
compared to 250,000 in the market, where that market is. And I've been all over town for the last 7 years, and I think there needs to be a balance between the homes that are around 250. I mean, if you get a home at 250, I think that's in the premium place for homes right now. Is that something, if I could build a $750,000 home, I would. But I think the market is going to drive what homes are sold.
And we're getting that a mile to the east in that new subdivision
We
that's
are,
getting
but
there.
if you've been here a while, you know that Wexford has taken 30 years to build out.
Okay, and it looks great.
It does now,
Yeah.
but it's sat there empty with no tax value.
I like empty fields
So-
too.
Yeah, I know,
Okay.
I do too.
One other thing that you need to keep in mind, that town did do a strategic plan a couple of years ago, and this type of housing was found to be needed in Danville. So this fits with the comprehensive plan, it fits with the strategic plan. So
It's filling. I don't get what,
there was a need in the town of Danville to be able to accommodate people to live here with that size of a house. Affordable housing is what they called it, which is very subjective, and I don't even like to use that term, but I just wanted to let you know that based on that and the comprehensive plan, plus the fact that they're already zoned R2,
anyone consider that could be people wanting to get out of Avon because of what's going on there, getting out of Brownsburg, getting out of Marion County? I mean, Danville's a very high sought-out place to live, and it's because we're small. It's because we're not building neighborhoods like this.
So I'll speak
Now we
to-
got 2 going in right now.
So I'll speak to that a little bit. Four Oaks, PUD, all those, 50% of those people are from Avon. They moved from one neighborhood to
Mhm.
another neighborhood.
When are we we're losing our identity as Danville. We're becoming Avon.
Yeah,
I didn't move to Danville to become Avon. I
understand.
moved out of Brownsburg to come here,
We're also not a strip mall. Avon's a strip mall.
right, which is getting ready to be a ghost town, but in my opinion. So that's what I would like to speak to, please consider. Thank you.
Thanks. My name is Tim Brown. I live at 1700 10th Street. Tom's my neighbor, Matt. I guess our biggest concern is we're being told I contacted Lisa about when it was zoned R2, and nobody can tell us when or why, and we're being told you have to choose between R2 or PUD. There's no other choice, but no one can tell us when it was zoned R2. I've lived there 16 years, never received a letter that it was being zoned R2. Like Tom said, all of us that live around there have acre, 2 acre, 5 acre. This doesn't fit with our area where we're at.
the property located to the south of this, which is Temple Estates, is R2. Most of the town, a lot of the town is R2. At the core of town is R2C. So that's a pretty standard zoning district classification for the town of Danville.
The whole town has to be R2. We can't have any diversity of R1 or other. I know we have an exempt subdivision around us.
R1 also, and you can check out the zoning map. It's posted online at any time. I just wanted to let you know that R2 is kind of a medium district for residential.
Whisperwood is more dense than this neighborhood, but Whisperwood also exits off onto 10th Street and 200 East, so people have two different directions to go, where you're gonna have all this in the morning going east or west or whatever. So that, not having two Temple Estates has an exit, two different points on 10th Street and Money. Consider that.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm John Berwick, 1201 Highbury Drive, Danville. My wife and I fled Avon last year, moved to Danville because of the nice, quiet community that it is, the friendly folks in a small town, which we were really not used to. I guess most of our concern, obviously, is the infrastructure that's going to take place with this development of however many homes. I understand this is going to take place no matter what we say or what we do. I would just like for you guys to take in consideration what's happened in Avon. While a lot of people are moving from Avon, we're fleeing Avon because there wasn't a whole lot of thought given to all the development that was going on, and the streets were pathetic streets. I'd like for you to consider, somebody mentioned, I think this gentleman mentioned at the information meeting we had, maybe putting a little island or something in, keep cars from going straight across 10th Street into Virginia over there, something like that to consider so they don't get the traffic into Temple Estates. Maybe having them widen 10th Street all the way down to 200 or something like that. But please keep in mind the infrastructure that we're dealing with here, keeping us a small town. But since we're not going to be able to maintain that small town, let's worry about our infrastructure so we don't become another Avon. Thank you.
Good evening. My name's Chad Wicks. I live at 1412 10th Street. I'm not going to say anything that's groundbreaking, that it probably hasn't already been said before, but I won't leave here satisfied unless I speak my sense. We moved to Danville 4 years ago from the southwest side of Indianapolis, seeking the small town life, as we've heard many times before. If there's people needing homes, I've got 5 in Indianapolis. I'd be happy to sell them. So I'll give you my number. One thing that Barry said earlier, and I agree with him, you know, when I first came out and started looking at the property that we purchased, Wexford needed to fill up. But I think Roten is an example of how well the custom home does sell in Danville. I think Wexford East is a great example. I was against Wexford East totally. And then definitely against the doubles, and I think the council did the right thing. So pat yourselves on the back for that. You got one citizen that. But anyway, so I realize it's R2. I realize what we're doing going forward. I've came in late, didn't have a seat. I've not heard a whole lot of people in favor. Just listen to the community. I realize there are people looking for housing, and it's a great market to be in if you're in real estate. But listen to the residents that are here now. And I can tell you from the taxes, property taxes that I buy, or that I pay, I'm sorry, you know, it's going to take 4 or 5 houses to match if you keep people in them. So all I'm saying is it's R2. I get it. It's zoned that way. It's not going to change. I wish it would. Wish it wasn't that way. I'm a capitalist. I don't blame the people who sold their property trying to get the most money they can out of it. But I think there was a market for custom homes, and you would get just as much, if not more, of a tax base. And my children, I came out here for a smaller school, smaller classes, so they could get a quality education, which I believe they are getting a quality education. And I think they'll continue to, but are we going to let them build as fast as they can? Are we going to, if this is going forward, are we going to say, okay, our infrastructure has to catch up with you? Our schools have to catch up with you. Phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, phase 4. Because we know how fast they can build. You know, they can throw those houses up in a hurry.
So
Four
there's,
Oaks.
so there's demand. So there's demand for those homes.
There is demand, absolutely. But there's also demand for the custom homes. What I'm saying is, let's be diligent to be responsible that our schools are not overrun. That's all I'm saying. If we're going to go forward with this, then let's do it in phases and allow the school to have that opportunity.
Thank you.
Hello, my name's Gary Meunier. I live at 1408 10th Street. And I talked to Paul, the proposal on the drainage, I know we talked about drainage, but it's going to come to my creek. It surrounds my property. And my concern is what you just said earlier. Well, that didn't fix it. Now I'm going to be dealing with it. Can we put in place something, if they do it and it doesn't work, that down the road that they're held accountable to make it right? I'm just asking because it floods our driveways. It's flooding them out. There's a problem. It's been a problem. And this is the first time that I've had a chance to talk about it. So thank you and hope you do the right thing.
Thanks.
Seeing nobody else? That'll end the audience participation this time. Anybody on the board have any questions?
I'd like to clarify the issue before the board. As I understand it, the only issue before the board today is whether to leave this tract of land as an R2 or to rezone it to a PUD. Is my understanding correct?
Lisa, can we maybe just kind of quickly discuss what all was talked about on Arbor Homes' part as potential compromises for the approval?
Talk about for additional.
Yes.
Okay, they agreed to doing the heavier gauge for vinyl. They agreed to the 12-inch overhang. They also did not agree on 100% of the homes on the perimeter of the property to be brick, stone, cultured stone, masonry, mason white, or wood on all of the elevations, but they did agree to wainscot. And for those homes to be a minimum square feet, talking about perimeter. To the, right, on the perimeter. Let's see. They agreed to the 5-foot wide sidewalk and also to the 8-foot wide trail along the frontage of the property. Yes, I'm sorry. So they agreed to 5-foot sidewalks throughout the subdivision, and they agreed to an 8-foot walk or trail along the frontage of the property on 10th Street.
Does that include a trail back to the?
All trails?
Yeah, so it brings back.
Yeah, 8 foot. Okay. Let's see. We really did not talk about, I don't believe, one of the comments that I had added in the letter was the mailbox type, just to ensure that they're not just going to be metal mailboxes. I didn't know if you guys, right. You didn't address any kind of entrance signage or landscaping at the entrance. I'm assuming that you will have some sort of, okay. Let's see. I think that's it.
And all these items are based on the PUD, correct?
Right.
Okay.
Can I say something? I guess the reason for my neighbors here to talk is to get in a time when their thoughts are valuable and can be considered. So I think they've come in early enough to have their thoughts considered. I'm new at this planning thing. So in listening to all you people speak, the first thing I want to talk about is a little bit in favor for the builder there. The gentleman that said 30 homes to be taken away, or out of this amount, that's a very small amount of homes, but that would be like 6 or 7 million to the project that they could use for things like escrow. So that's the only favorable thing I can think of for the builder. But for the people, the escrow thing, I've never heard of that before, but I understand it completely. And I really am thinking about that. I'm the president of the town council, and we had a problem with Stratford Ridge. Years ago, we okayed the ridge, let the builder leave, and then we had a $500,000 bill to redo the road. You guys have seen the road, it blew out when it fills up, and all of a sudden that was on us. So on us, the whole town. So that put a light bulb in my head when you're talking about escrow and that. And I think the things that after the subdivision, if it's built, is the drainage thing. I would really be mad about that if I was a gentleman or lady. And I think the drainage thing, you can do all the science and all the engineering, but it'll be told when it rains and all those houses are there and what they've done. And I think if it comes to fruition, I think a escrow for that would be a favorable thing in my eyes. The traffic thing, back to Stratford Ridge, we had to spend that $500,000. The builders are a business and they want to make money, but I think some kind of escrow for a road in the future is interesting to me, and hopefully that can be thought of somehow. And then the island, going across into the other subdivision. I thought about that, and when somebody brought up putting an island across there, I had two thoughts. One, yes, that would stop the thing, but then what does it do to the traffic? Where does that traffic go? So I'm not a traffic person, but I see you people have thought about your problems, tried to solve them, and that. So I'm very concerned about the drainage, about the road in the future, and I think maybe an escrow could help that if the subdivision goes through as it is. So I don't know what else to say.
I guess I'll just kind of throw in, I like the escrow idea. I don't think it's fair. I think that's something that would need to be passed kind of on a broader level into the future. Because you can't just hit those guys with that. I don't know if that's something that other Indiana towns do.
We wouldn't even have any means, we don't have anything set up to where we can escrow money for those types of infrastructure.
Is it too late for that?
That's something that would need to, for this,
Yeah.
right.
It's too late.
I mean, it's something that the,
Has the town ever thought of structure?
the town does have a park impact fee. I don't know if they've ever had discussion about road impact fees or other, but those are possibilities.
But there are also connection fees for water and sewer and things as such.
Right.
Well, I just wanted to make sure I had my thoughts before this went forward.
Other thing I'd like to, I'm not a traffic engineer by any means, but I've sat through a lot of these meetings over the years, and one thing that is a traffic safety or hazard, either way you want to call it, is you want drives and entrances to line up. You don't want them offset, because then that becomes a hazard. So I know that there's concern about people going through Temple Estates, you know, going through here and going through that subdivision, but that's really what you want. You want that connectivity, you want the flow, you want traffic to be able to get where they need to go. So I wouldn't be in favor of moving that entrance. I think it would be a. Right. Right. Whisperwood has an entrance on 10th Street, and they have one on 200 East. Right. Right, but when there is a drive across from it, that's where you want your entrance to be for traffic safety. I go through Temple Estates, and I live on 10th Street, I'm sorry. But if I want to go to Old Farm, that's where I go. So, I mean, that's just the nature of the beast, I guess.
And I think if you look at traffic studies, I think we have an example of why an offset entrance does not work, is you go to 300 East.
Right.
There's been more accidents at that because those roads are offset, and what you're going to do is you're going to move that road 100 feet, and then you're going to have another road, and it creates a traffic problem.
Right.
Is the police department here tonight? Maybe they can say something that would. Just the those are county roads, but you're going to get the same effect. You have basically the same setup if you go on 10th Street, which is a highly traveled road. I live in that area. I mean, I don't want to argue with you, but you have the same situation. Is where
Paul?
those roads are offset, they create traffic problems.
Paul, can you speak to that at all? I mean, I know that you've dealt with traffic engineering.
Our engineers that we hire that do these layouts take that into as part of the layout and the discussion, anything that's surrounding the property. So you're looking at drainage, infrastructure, how that's all going to form and how it's all going to work. In a case like this where you have a major subdivision on the other side of it, you want to line up those entrances, because if you stagger those entrances, it becomes more distraction points over the course of 10th Street that take a driver's view or a driver's attention away from where they're supposed to be going. If you have them at one location, they're focusing on that location. Plus, what it also does is it offers up, we'll have XL decel lanes coming into ours along with the island in the middle for a boulevard and a dedicated turn lane that'll all be a part of that. And when you have those XL decel lanes, it gives the opportunity for cars on both sides to pass if somebody's waiting to turn. You line up those intersections, it allows for better connectivity across those points. So our engineers took that into effect, as well as A&F whenever they were doing part of the traffic study, was looking at our entrances and how those would impact the others. Now, I can't say that people are not going to go through Temple Estates. I can't promise that that's the case because I can't control where they go once they leave the subdivision. But as far as the entrances, that's the reason why they're lined up, is it's a safety concern.
Paul, while you're up here, you indicated that on the traffic study that you had indicated that the flow of traffic today, or recently last week, was similar or greater than the last study. So do you recall when the last study was? Did it happen?
2019.
2019?
Would have been,
do you know
I
what
believe,
month that
March
was?
of 2019.
Okay, so kids were still in school at that time. So the traffic flow, from my understanding of what you just said, then is the same while kids are in school and also while kids are out of school.
Correct.
Thank you.
I didn't see any cars out there with a guy counting with his fingers how many cars went by. So how did they do that traffic study?
Who's speaking? Where's that person coming from? Pardon?
If the traffic study was done in March of last year, could it have been done over spring break? Is that a possibility? Something to consider, though, right?
Thank you. I believe Danville's spring breaks are at the end of March, 1st of April. Okay.
Our traffic engineers take the schedules from the local schools to take that into consideration if there is a fall break or another break as to reasons that why they might not be there. If they can't seem to find one online, they will contact the schools to make sure that they know the schedules are going to align with when they are doing the traffic studies.
Thank you.
I know it's not germane to the zoning, but Barry, you might be able to answer this. As far as the city water, that runs along 10th Street, correct?
It does. There's a main on
Sewer as
10th
well?
Street,
10-inch
yes.
water. More than likely, the town will have to connect that to the new 12 that they put on 200.
There was an extension that was looped into the entrance of Whisperwood, that actually goes through Whisperwood, and comes out the north entrance. Yeah, it doesn't go.
What size is it going through Whisper?
I believe it's a 10-inch. And it's a 12 coming up 200 for expansion. Yes. When you say address it, we put main in the ground. The state requires a mandate. We must carry 40 pounds of pressure, and we meet that all over town easily. We have to meet those mandates by law, by state law.
Are you saying you don't have 40 pounds? That could be internal.
And we find that quite often.
Yeah. Anybody else have any questions? At this time, Planning Commission's action is favorable recommendation for rezoning request, favorable recommendation for rezoning request with commitments, an unfavorable recommendation for rezoning. This goes to the town then for final. Is that correct, Lisa?
Yes, it does.
That would be
In 2 weeks. Well, actually, it will probably be the first Monday of August. They don't meet again. They meet tomorrow night. Next time will be August. What is that? The first,
The 5th.
the 5th.
Well, at this time, I would entertain. Since we have commitments, I think that would be super.
I'll make a favorable recommendation for rezoning request with the stated commitments that were discussed earlier in the meeting.
A motion for a favorable with the.
I'll second.
And a second. Barry.
Mr. Pato?
Aye.
Ms. Rumpert?
Aye.
Mr. Harvey? Aye. Thompson? Aye. Mr. Sheets?
Aye.
Van Leer?
Aye.
I vote aye as well.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is the public hearing for the rezone. The council will hear this for approval or denial on August the 5th. The meeting starts at 7 p.m.
Nicely vibrant.
Nathan, thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Okay. And who are you? Okay. Oh, okay. Okay, yes, thank you.
Ellie's
All right,
going down
thank
I-80,
you.
so
You too.
So,
I think 5-minute break would be in order.
I need to take this mask off. So I need to take this mask off.
5 minutes, 5-minute break.
yeah,
Must not be very important.
It's not us.
Where's our crowd? Clear the room.
So I guess I'll just kind of start talking. I don't know if all of you have reviewed the sheet.
Who are you? Where do you live?
We are Wright Realtors, and this is my wife, and Teddy's inside of there, a little baby girl that's coming here in about 2 weeks. So, and I'm Tim. So Mayor Rose kind of typed up a thing for us. Most of you probably read it. To make a long story short, we are trying to enhance our building on the square. If you look around, I think we're probably one of a few that are left that need to be updated, I would say. There's some current pictures on there. I think after her kind of little letter or speech there, you can kind of see what it looks like. We've got a vinyl kind of shake below that beam there. And so what we're wanting to do, if you're looking at our office, we want to move the door that goes into our office, and we're trying to be symmetrical about this whole thing and make it add some window frontage. We want to move our door underneath. There's 5 windows up top. We want to split the 2 that are above our office. And then in front of Red's, we wanted to come directly underneath that window to make everything look symmetrical.
Mr. Wright, do you own that building?
We do.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. So what we want to do, because if you guys don't know, a vehicle struck our building back November 19. Guy's truck going in to get some Red's Donuts just jumped the curb and hit our building. So we have insurance money to spend on this. We have a substantial amount to spend on this. We are willing to, fix up our building and make it look really nice with your guys' approval. So the hang up kind of with the design review committee was really moving or we were trying to not negotiate with them, so to speak, but consider things that they wanted. So we offered to either move or repurpose this cast iron beam that is left of our door. We can move it, hopefully. If not, maybe repurpose it somewhere else.
Is there 3 of those in there or just?
There are 3 cast iron beams and there are 3 brick pillars there. Dave Wilson, our contractor, is not here tonight. His father suddenly passed away. He was struck by a car. Otherwise, he would have been here with us tonight to kind of elaborate on some of the structural stuff. But Barry, I think you were out when we met with the design review committee on a Friday morning about some of these things. Now, I'm not an architect, I'm not an engineer, but I think if
the 3 cast iron beams, and we're only talking about moving probably one of them or taking it out, one of the 2. I don't think that that's structural because they're not symmetrical to the building and all the other stuff in there. It's just a kind of a common sense guess on my part. So
You said they're not structural?
I don't believe, I mean, if we move, I don't think the one left of our door is structural.
But if it turns out that they are, we're open and fluid to whatever we
Move
need
it,
to do.
you know.
But we
Well,
haven't.
Barry, did you say there was a steel post behind
There
that?
could be,
That would be the structural.
Sure. And we don't know until we get, I mean, I didn't know there was a scroll cast iron beam there until the guy ran in my office and I wanted to fix behind there, so I popped it open and there she lies, so.
We wanted to repurpose those and use those in a different way. Mostly building up that middle beam there to try to give that some more presence to the building.
I think she's got what we would do is we would add some, if you're going on the pictures, it'd be page 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's kind of our architect's drawing. We widen that I-beam there a little bit to kind of match the top, kind of make it all kind of match up real nice. And then right off the bottom of that beam would be our awning system.
So, Mr. Wright, so we don't know if an architect would approve moving those beams or not. Is that correct?
Correct.
And you're looking for us to pass this on an appearance, by its appearance. But of course, we have to get an architect to see if the building will hold up.
Well, I will say, this is just for the design. That's all the design.
All right. Okay, I understand now.
There hasn't been any sort of
Okay.
architectural drawings or
No,
anything like that.
no, but, well,
At this point.
yes, we have an
Yes.
architecture drawing. He has not been out to say, hey, this is
Yeah,
structural.
but it hasn't, you don't have final set of
Right,
plans or anything
right,
like that.
no.
I didn't mean to interrupt. Were you?
No, I'm trying to figure it out.
Yeah.
But
Perfectly
when-
fine.
From his conversation just now, it sounded like, he didn't know if he's going to move it or not. And
Right,
We
well,
want to.
we want to, that's the thing,
But we
if
have
we
to be,
can.
yeah.
So, like you said, we can't, since we had an architect there to say if there's a metal beam behind that, I don't think there is, but, we just gotta get somebody out there to tell us yes or no.
So-
If you repurpose those and use them to beef up horizontal beam above, you thinking about doing all 3 of them up there?
No.
Just parts of, yeah.
Yeah, the one that we may take out, Tommy, but we're not gonna take out the other 2.
Are you gonna uncover them?
We don't want to. We want to, so in our plans, we're gonna basically, they're gonna be 8-inch wide, 18-inch wide columns. Is the measurement in there? I think on our original sketch, on the architect drew, they were 24 inches wide. So we're gonna make them 18 inches wide. Yeah, something similar to that, yes. I think it's in here. Let me see.
so we're looking at, if we like the way that's something like that, that's what he's going to build.
Yeah, it'll be something very similar to that.
I think that's beautiful. When can we open the place? I'll come over there.
Well, I will say, and I'm on the design review committee. I wasn't at the initial meeting. That was-
Yep.
But, I'll just a thumbnail of what was in the packet, that I will say, all but 2 of us on the design review committee were not in favor. We didn't have a vote, so there's no vote to bring permission, but, myself and Lee Comer were the only in favor, and basically felt like we would rather see this, and I like what it is, rather than you doing nothing.
That's the other option.
Okay, I'll try
I don't know
to,
if that's a good thumbnail.
you tell me if I'm right, okay? So I think there's like 2 issues. They wanted them to expose those beams, or not beams, columns, whatever they are. they came back with, okay, we don't want to expose them, but we will, if we remove them, we will repurpose them. We'll use them up above so that we're still using that scroll. So I think that's one issue, is to approve that, okay? Because they were saying they want to maintain the historical character of the facade.
Well, but hold on. How long have those things been covered up? Because the historical integrity of that is that they haven't been exposed for the last 25 or 30 years.
Well,
Oh, yeah.
I don't know, and Lisa, you might be able, and I don't know if it's just my interpretation, where it says, retain the unique architectural, historic, and aesthetic characteristics. I don't, my interpretation, I don't think that that's include elements. Elements aren't included in that. They might be the characteristics of the element, but it's not necessarily the elements. But I'm in the minority on that committee.
So then there was, the only other issue was, and this can be taken care of through them getting an architect on board and getting approval through the state. But their concern was if they move the door, then that affects the step, then that takes them out of their grandfathering, being grandfathered, and then they may have to go through the state to get a design and, like, do a platform similar to what Frank's is, you
So
know.
the reality to that, though, is that the town of Danville and the state of Indiana don't enforce the ADA. That is a federal requirement. The state of Indiana does an accessibility law, but there's so many ways to get around that. They have access in the back, and so there's ways to
But if they were,
comply.
but if their permit, if they would have to go through the state to get a
Anything
release,
structural
design release,
would
they
be
would
required.
have to address that then,
Yes,
right?
yes.
Yeah.
Now, there's chapter 34, which is, basically, it's an equation that you put all these numbers in, and it says, yes, the building's safe, or no, it's not. And you don't even have to do ADA compliance in those situations, because they don't even recognize the ADA, because it is enforced by the federal government, not at a local level. So, that being said, if anything was structural, that's whenever you're going to get into, we have to have an engineer, we're going to have to go to the state, so then that process is going to grow on you. I mean, it's going to be a 30-day minimum because it takes them that long to review it and get it through the process.
So are you saying that, assuming that us moving the door and moving this beam,
Yep.
that's structural
If that's
issue,
structural,
then I have to go through
load-bearing,
this?
then you have to get an engineer or an architect of record, Indiana Seal. They have to submit plans to the state would have to approve that, and anything that you touch would have to come up to current standards.
But you wouldn't have to come back to us. That would
If
be-
it's
Right.
not structural, I don't have to worry
Area
about
with a
that, right?
permit, yeah.
So basically, I think the biggest thing here is we're gonna look at the building and say, yes, it meets what you just read, Adam, that it meets the intent of the CO, the corridor overlay, and the way this looks is in line with everything around it. I think that's more or less in a nutshell what we need to approve tonight or not.
So I sent this email, I believe it was today, that the design review committee came up with another, and I don't know, I know I sent it to you.
Have you seen this drawing? Okay.
Got it Friday. Yeah.
They came back with
That one beam, the reason you're wanting to move it out of there is that it's right in the way of where you want to put the door, isn't it?
Looking for symmetry and
Yeah.
balance.
So just, if you're kind of listening to the conversation now, it says they wanted us to expose the scrolls, then we were covering them up, and now we can move one.
We
It
were
just
just-
seems, when we were going through this process, and very frustrating, it just kept, I mean, we were compromising, but now, I mean, it shows a big compromise on their part. I don't know what took them so long to do that. That's more in line with.
It
kind
basically
of what
gives
we're
you
trying to-
everything you want, and you still get the columns there, right?
So I guess what you would be approving then is what they submitted as a
Very-
compromise, if that's what you accept.
Well, we would like our plans, what we have on this right here, which
The
is
only
not-
reason
not
why we
far off from
don't,
what they're got.
the only reason why we don't like this look is, and I don't want to sound like, rude coming off by saying this, but our side is just a door and a side window. We think as the owner of the building that we should have a door, 2 side windows, just to bring more presence to our building.
It's a great
I know that
entrance. I mean,
sounds really bad.
We're gonna make both the entrances green.
want the
We're gonna
thicker-
look great.
Yeah,
the
we
thicker
wanted
beam
like
on the
2
top as
windows,
well.
yeah, 2 windows on each side of our entrance, kind of how Red's is, and we feel like that's what our drawing gives us.
So we're basically, in their drawing, we're fixing up reds and making theirs really nice.
Right.
I like your idea. I think we should try to support people like you that want to improve the looks of the town.
And some of this, so on this drawing here, the architect drawing, I know it's kind of small, but you can see those wood columns that they have there, and some of this doors and stuff on here, just, you guys can really see it, like the doors, the way these look. We're not gonna do this Wayfair Tavern. I mean, that's
Which basically is what this is.
Just gonna be plain black?
Yeah. I mean, so in the Wayfair picture too, if you look at that, how nice that kind of Wayfair Tavern looks, we kind of think we want to do something like that, even though we have a sign. I think that, like, what if we put like a gold?
Or
and then
right,
a gold
right
red stain?
building or something like
Right.
that, yeah.
Hall Lock was the name, or Hall Lock is the name. So we're open to stuff, it's very fluid, we understand that, I mean, if we got to do things a little different, hopefully this beam isn't.
And Red's has been such an asset to the square that we feel like we want to give them a beautiful entrance too, even if it's doubling our cost.
And we can sit out the front and eat donuts.
Yes,
So,
yeah,
I'll
which
lay it up.
we actually,
You guys can pass this around there. Russ.
the whole, I don't know, it's not, probably not in there, but the whole building's gonna be painted white, like all the wainscoting, and we bought, a bunch of different, we bought tables for Reds to surprise them and give them, it's all accented in black, so it's gonna be black and white, so.
Too late now.
Well, we told them we're trying. We just gotta-
Yeah, we're just trying to get
Change
started.
their name from Reds if you put black and white in there.
Are you still thinking like a patio area on the west side?
I mean, it's
sometime
just,
down the
there's
road?
gonna be a little bit of room out front, I mean, not much.
Not much,
Uh,
maybe 1 or 2 tables, so.
Yeah, probably just one, maybe 3 seats, 2, something like that, something that's
Is the
kinda nice.
sidewalk the same as it is over by courthouse grounds, the same width?
Yeah, yeah.
So it'd be
This one's a little
similar-
bit more of a slant,
Slope,
but
yeah.
Okay.
And we just kind of, it's.
I think
that's
the
kinda
more,
the thing right now, with COVID going around with the outside a
Outside.
little bit, and,
I think the more al fresco dining we have in town, the better. Eating outside, I think is wonderful.
And then too, on that drawing, I referenced 2-foot columns, those will be 18 inches. So on each side of those columns.
The only heartburn I had about this whole thing, that you guys and DRC couldn't come to some kind of agreement where they take a vote, which is normal, and then they go for it or be against it. It just seems like now we have to make the decision.
And I will say, in the years, I think I've been on the design review committee for 6 or 8 years. I think this is really the first item, where we've had multiple meetings even, or I think maybe one or two other times.
He's
where we've had-
different, but he learned that from his dad.
And I will, there was a lot of consideration.
I think what
And
you're doing.
again, I fell on a different side. But not to I think, they definitely had some good points.
That Charlie's
Found the
building
right
next to
place.
you.
Yes, it is. And, you know, I plan on being around a while. So, you know, what if I, say I purchase the Charlie Jones building or the building to the south of me? I want to keep that same stuff kind of going. Really, we take pride, we both grew up here, born and raised, so.
Well, I think that the interior of your office, is extremely well done. As I had mentioned before, I think if Mary Rose has anything to do with it, that she even makes you look good. So I got I got to say that I think that what you guys have done is extremely tasteful, and like I said, I think that those beams have been lost to time a long time ago, and I don't have any heartburn seeing them go.
So have you decided, the only question I have, and I like this look because I'm about symmetrical. I want everything to be just right. You are doing a cloth awning?
We
Okay.
compromised on
Okay.
that, yeah.
Originally,
I'm
we
just
wanted-
writing down notes so that when it comes time to go through the process, that I know what we talked about and everybody's on the same page, that I know exactly what to look for.
Yes, yes.
So would the cloth awnings actually be covering up the like the white wainscoting, or would it?
It's just like,
It's,
because
we-
it's
me-
right underneath them,
We
so.
talked, you're still gonna be able to see it if you're underneath it, but we talked and how we want the awning to kind of stop at the top of the windows.
The windows, yes.
Not necessarily the doors.
So they're not
but the top of the
hanging
window,
down.
Okay, all right.
The bottom of
Yeah,
it.
I got you.
Nothing being done on the second floor exterior?
I think it's like the letter up there at the top where it's kind of falling off.
Change it to a W?
I don't know, I'm kind of scared.
You can have Dave do it.
This is talking about the other end of the block. That block is not uniform by any means. The old bank building is in no way historic. It's clean-cut, modern lines. So I don't think everything has to be maintained as it was. I think it needs to maintain similar characteristics. And we already have one building on that block that is extremely different, having been probably built before this committee came into effect.
The other thing, that courthouse annex on the other side, that's pretty modern. That doesn't fit with anything. Mayberry would be upset about that.
Yeah, and we're just, a bunch of the buildings, we got brick on ours, but we've got that vinyl shake.
We're ready to tear that off for
Yeah,
sure.
to where you can't, that's,
It used to be at the bottom too, and we tore that off, so it looks a little better, but.
So, I guess you guys have any other questions? So on Mr. Perkins's drawing, our awning's gonna cover up what he has here on the top, which is beadboard, I believe. We're not gonna use beadboard. We're gonna make it wainscot or something really nice.
To match the bottom.
So this process is simply to approve the design.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think if you look at Charlie Jones's building,
This is very similar to, I think, he's got some kind of pretty symmetrical.
He probably has those same kind of.
He does.
structures, and
Matter of
they're
fact, he's
covered up,
got
aren't they?
his ones that are not on the ends, I think he's got 3 larger, I think they're about a foot wide. In this picture, you can kind of see 2 very similar to what we have.
Are they covered up?
Charlie Jones's are not.
Painted.
Painted?
Yeah. And these things have paint on them. I'm featuring, I'll probably, if you guys made me uncover them, I'd have to sandblast them.
Well, and that brings up a whole nother issue because that could be lead-based paint.
Could be, more than likely.
So
Well, the
if-
way it's fractured,
Yeah.
that's like a sign that if people are like, oh my God, it's lead. So that's a whole nother thing. My only comments, and then let's say we move forward, is that if you do find something structural, let us know, and then we can go down the right road to make sure, these are old buildings, if we touch them the wrong way, they'll fall down. We had one of them fall down on the same road. We don't want that to happen here. Of course, you have something on each side of you to
Yep.
kind of keep it in place.
Require permit, right?
Absolutely.
Okay.
If they get into the structural because they're moving the doors and things, you will need a local permit regardless. But if you get into a structural part, then I'll just send you to the state, and then you'll go through their process, and then you can use the existing permit that we issued.
I think you have a good relationship with Dave.
Yep, yep, yep.
I guess the proper thing is, we're not approve these recommendations because they didn't have one, so.
Other than that email that I just passed around to you guys, they did a consensus. There were 4 people that were okay with that, with what Scott sent today.
Have you had a chance to review what was sent today?
What Scott sent? Yes.
What are your feelings about it?
We like it for the most part, only our side, it doesn't give us a really nice entrance.
Doesn't address our side.
But red side and the window, we love the window. That's the kind of windows and doors we're looking
Yeah.
for.
Yeah, the doors and windows, exactly what she just said. We like that. That's what we're gonna go for right there. Long, tall glass, you know.
It's just we need to move our door to give us some presence to our
Yeah,
side.
and unfortunately, it's there. You know what I mean? So we want it gone or move it, whatever, to make it work with what we want.
So what kind of motion are we looking for here?
Good
I
question.
mean, we can't, I guess you
Well,
could.
our motion will be to either approve or disapprove design review committee's consensus with 4 affirmative responses dated July, it says July 10th. Is that when they did it?
So if we approve that, will they be able to change their doors the way they want?
That addresses.
When you sent that out, yeah.
Yeah, so this,
This is what they approved.
But Tim would prefer,
because that doesn't allow
They would
to move the. I thought it did.
now, do you know whether the door is movable?
You can see in the picture. Got it.
We have to get an architect to tell.
All doors can be moved.
I don't know if he was trying to line it up or what, because his drawing's off a little bit in regards to the door.
Yeah,
I don't know.
because your door and the apartment door is right side by side.
That's why
That's
we were
what
trying to
do.
separate.
Trying to move it over so there's a little bit of gap in between each thing there.
and that we had a door.
You don't want to do the beadboard either.
Yeah, no, we're not gonna, the exterior,
This is the
anything.
drawing you want to put.
Yes.
Yes, so anything exterior siding wise is gonna be clean.
So that drawing right there with a cloth awning is what we need to do.
That or reject it? Tim's plan, the architect.
This one or this one?
The architectural plan.
Modification.
The one, I heard Thomas.
Then maybe we should reject what the,
If, Mr. President, if that didn't come to us with a full vote, I don't think we would have to reply to that at all.
It was a consensus opinion.
I think it had 4 affirmative,
Right,
4 out of the 7.
which is a majority.
Okay.
So,
Did that come from the president?
yes.
Okay.
So can we pass it with a modification?
No,
Help. I'm looking for help.
we
required to-
reject the one from committee
yeah,
and then approve this one if that's what.
yeah,
Sounds good to me.
that's,
I would make a motion that we reject the Design Review Committee's recommendation.
Second.
Okay, we have we'll just take a voice vote on favor of that, signify by saying.
Aye.
Opposed? We need to label this somehow. Put me a label on
Can,
this.
can we do like,
So, like on that drawing, there'll be some slight modifications to that, but in general, that's what's on.
Well, obviously, as you, it's like Barry
Right.
said, as you dig into it,
see what?
you know, it's like doing plumbing or something. You're gonna, I live in a,
Everything's
Conceptual.
conditional.
yeah.
Been there since the beginning, when it was built?
Well, sometimes I feel like I have. 20 years.
Okay?
Thank you for your patience.
Thank you guys so
Going
much.
through the process.
It's been a long night.
Thank you.
I did get frustrated, with the other, you know,
second motion?
Yeah,
Yes.
we need a motion now to approve this rights proposal dated 7/13.
So I would make a motion to approve the rights proposal dated 7/20 with the condition of awnings and pending structural analysis.
I second the motion.
Motion and a second. I'll take a roll call on this.
Mr. Pato?
Aye.
Mr. Rippert?
Aye.
Mr. Thompson? Mr. Sheets?
Aye.
Mr. Van Leer?
Aye.
I vote aye as well.
There you go.
Thank you guys so much.
Appreciate
We
you guys.
truly
Go home.
appreciate it. Yeah.
Get to bed.
Awning and the structural analysis.
Thank you again.
So is this your first child that you're expecting?
Oh, we have twin boys.
Oh,
So this one's the one in charge.
In theory, this one should be a breeze, but.
Yes.
The other two boys,
2 boys and a girl.
your dad's talked about having to take care of those
let
two
me tell you
boys.
about girls.
Actually, we put them to work.
Mr. President, can I have a point of personal privilege for just a second? I hope I speak for the council when I say, but on behalf of the town of Danville, Cody, thank you so much for your service to our plan commission. It takes a certain degree of dedication to put yourself, what you, just for tonight alone, have put you through, and you'll be missed. So I wanted
Appreciate it.
I wanted to thank you very much, sir.
Thank you. Thanks, guys.
Good luck to you.
Thank you. Yeah, I may watch him, yeah.
Just find another damn as good as he is. You got any reports? Sit down. You got any reports? Nothing?
Thank you again.
No rumors?
No, I mean, Starbucks filed an application. Starbucks is going in, a meeting next week with Westport Homes on the Miles property to the west of Danville. We've been talking to some people about a couple of industrial sites, south side of 36, 2 and 300, or 300, 400.
Are they pretty positive?
Yeah, I think so, don't you, Mark? About our industrial site? Pretty positive.
Outside the box, as far as water and wastewater, we don't have service to two of the areas that they're looking at, but we're exploring if we can provide service, or if we need to work with outside agencies, whether it be West Central Conservancy or Citizens. We are looking at numerous options. They seem like I'm trying to sell the farm, using our own utilities. The fact of the matter, what I'm looking at mostly is the project to bring over 300 new jobs. And I think that, to me, that is the most important thing, especially in that far eastern area. I want to be able to provide service. We are working diligently with our utilities to figure out a way to provide service. As I do believe, if we're lucky enough to get this company, it'll be like the Field of Dreams. Once we build one,
Well, that will fill up the new development almost immediately with
Almost.
300 new jobs.
Yeah,
Good,
yeah.
absolutely. They're over, was it 3? It was in the high 300s. One of 30 towns. Have a couple of unique features that I think edge rural community. Looking for someone that is capable of getting rid of their pipe.
Cattle.
Airport doesn't hurt.
It doesn't. The only thing that hurts us on that is if we have to do an alternative water solution where we'd have to do above-ground storage, we're limited on the height of the facility we can build because of restrictions on the earth. We actually, if this will tell you how deep we've been looking at this, the storage tanks out at Raceway Park that currently store oil, we've even looked at those as being a low-profile water facility, water above storage. It's endless. I mean, really, we've ruled nothing out. We have met and talked about this, and many of you know who've been working with this administration for the last year, don't even know where the box is. The box away a long time.
Have you found a home for the cabana yet?
Not yet. We're working on it.
I bet you felt about that tall when you mentioned it to them. They didn't even know it.
About the restaurant?
Fortunately, it wasn't me that went down there.
Oh, I thought you said you went.
No, I said, we sent, Lindy Benedetto and,
Oh,
no. I felt terrible when they came back and reported to me that they didn't even know Starbucks was an option.
Oh, they didn't know, they had no idea?
So,
their breakfast is pretty good.
We've actually, the reason I asked Kelly to go down there, she took Jerry. There are some other options in the
Absolutely,
community,
yeah.
Them to look at. We've got Jerry Reed's old building. Jerry Bornholt's old floor shop is opening up. That there is left
Well, we may have a new, there across from Mayberry too.
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
Right.
a little bit down the road, but,
He's gonna have, his business
yeah.
Yeah.
Looked like they had an outfit in there today where they're taking core samples.
They
Could
did,
be.
soil samples.
Yeah. Well, he told us that they had to take out all that sand stuff that they put in there when they took that building out. Really?
Makes it
We
for those
got,
15-minute meetings on
Yeah, no
occasion.
kidding, no kidding.
We got a BZA next week.
Yep, right.
Got BZA
Yes.
next week.
Yes.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Gone.
Sounded like it broke. What is it, 9:50?
Nice to meet you.
Nice to work with you for a little while.
It's a pleasure.
Greg Van Leer.